Morning everyone, Johnny Matthew here. Thanks for joining, if you are joining, and if you're watching this on the replay, welcome as well. It's good to have you here. This is my weekly blog post, video blog post. My name is Johnny Matthew and I am a social worker and a criminologist, writer and a blogger at johnnymatthew.com, where I try to provide information and inspiration for people who work with or care for troubled children and young people, particularly teenagers. So this is my weekly attempt to provide a video of the blog post. The blog post goes out on my website at johnnymatthew.com, usually on a Sunday night. So this is just for those people who maybe are not readers or would prefer to watch something instead. So welcome. If you join us, share the love. If you want to do that, you can tap on your screen, which is, I believe, around about here. Oh, look at that! Blue hearts. Thank you, blue heart person. Lovely. Really good. It's taken me ages to get on a green heart as well. It's taken me ages to get to the bottom of this, all the technicalities around this thing, but I love it. So welcome. It's good to have you here. As you can see, it's another bad hair day in Johnnyland, but that's the nature of the beast. So living with reality. So what I'd like to look at today, as briefly as we can, is why punishment doesn't work for really troubled kids. It's a difficult subject, this one, and I'm aware that I'm slightly playing with fire because I'm going to open up some issues that I may not have time to fully do justice to. But I just want to whiz through the blog post and encourage you to go back to the website, the link for which is behind me, the address is behind me. So you can go there and have a good look at it, and we can interact there as well if you like. But feel free to comment on here, and if I can get my glasses down and read what you're saying, I shall try and respond if I can. Maybe we'll do a quick question bit at the end. So here we go. Why punishment doesn't work for troubled kids. I just want to say right at the beginning that I'm talking about those kids who are very damaged, who've had a really poor start in life. So kids who've been dealing with abuse and trauma, neglect, those who, as a result of all of those experiences and difficulties, maybe have developed attachment problems, and certainly many of whom, if not most of whom, will have developed some kind of behavioural problem. So I guess I want to establish the principle at the beginning. The kind of behaviours I'm talking about are those that have come into being because kids and young people have been living in dangerous, difficult, threatening, abusive situations. Thank you for the hearts. And as a result of that, they've developed behaviour which is problematic. So kids develop behaviour in threatening situations that helps them to survive. The problem is when they're no longer in those situations or they find themselves with different people, those behaviours recur. And I guess what I'm trying to focus on is why those of us who care for these kids, maybe as social workers, youth justice workers, foster or kinship carers, people who work in mental health, in youth work, and so on. We're dealing with these kids, but we're no longer in the kids are no longer in the threatening situations when we help them, when we're trying to help them. But those behaviours recur. I've dealt with a number of situations recently, for example, where kids have been prosecuted time after time after time after time for behaviour that occurs in residential homes or in foster homes. Now, whilst I understand that on some occasions we may feel that's appropriate or that that's necessary, particularly if it's very severe or serious offences, but actually most of that behaviour is a kind of behaviour that will be played out in kids' homes with their families, and over a period of years they would have learned to deal with those. But because their home situations have been dangerous, abusive, neglectful or difficult in some way, their behaviour is adapted to help them survive. But because they're not in that situation anymore, behaviour that was adaptive is now considered to be problematic or even offensive, and probably worst of all is put down as offending. And so we prosecute really needy, damaged children for behaviours that actually their home situations have helped them to develop. So prosecution is daft in those circumstances, absolutely right. So what I'd like to look at is just to posit a way of looking at this behaviour that may kind of try and help us, because those of us who are working with these young people, we do face some really tricky situations, and we do have to manage that behaviour, sometimes in home settings, sometimes in residential settings, sometimes in public settings. I've had to deal with this behaviour in court, in child protection meetings, in homes, in bus stations, and it's really difficult. But I've just come across a way of looking at it which has really helped me, so I just want to share it and throw it out there. So here we go. The key, I think, is to see behaviour as a symptom rather than the problem itself. And I think that helps us if we shift that. So here's a quick illustration. So let's imagine we've got a guy or a girl who can normally run the 100 metres in, say, about 15 seconds. It's a reasonable time. It's a respectable time. Many of us would like to be able to do that, but we can't. So they can run 100 metres in a respectable, decent time, around about 15 seconds. And maybe, let's imagine then, in training one day, they turn their ankle, or they break their leg, or something happens to their leg. Let's say they break their leg, and they can't run the 100 metres now. They can't run it. Not only can they not run it in 15 seconds, they can't really run it at all, because they've damaged their leg. Now, I guess what I'm trying to say is, that broken leg is actually the problem. The symptom of the problem is they can't run the 100 metres anymore. So for our troubled kids, the cause of the problem, or the problem itself, is impaired development. Difficult circumstances, attachment problems that have come along as a result of numerous repeated damaged and dangerous experiences. But the symptom of that problem is that their behaviour is aberrant in some way. So maybe they swear a lot, maybe they chuck things around, maybe they fly off at the handle, maybe they're extremely anxious and hypervigilant and seem to get into all kinds of difficult behaviours without any apparent triggers. Now that's really difficult. And I guess what I'm saying is, if we see the behaviour as the problem, we try and address the behaviour. So usually the behaviour is a kind of behaviour that we think we need to punish or offer consequences to straight away. And what I'm saying is the behaviour isn't the problem, that the problem is an impaired development. The problem is that the kids had a poor start in life that this behaviour has resulted from. And what I'm suggesting is that if we see the behaviour as the broken leg rather than as the inability to run properly, it will help us. Okay, so I guess the questions I'm asking is then, why do we arrest, charge and punish really damaged children for behaviour that they're not really able to control properly? Bruce Perry, who writes about the neurosequential model of therapeutics and does a lot of brain research, absolutely brilliant. I recommend his website, by the way, which I think is childtraumaacademy.org, or it might be childtrauma.org. But if you look up Bruce Perry, you'll find it, and there's some great free download stuff on there. But at the end of one of his articles, he makes a comment, something like, and I'm paraphrasing, the criminal justice system needs to ask itself why we're prosecuting children for behaviour that they're developmentally incapable of controlling. Why are we prosecuting kids for behaviour that they're developmentally incapable of controlling? That's a really powerful statement. It's not an exact quote, but it's there or thereabouts. Another thing we do is we kick kids out of school. We sanction them, or we expel them and exclude them, and even the language that we use in relation to these children and young people is really pejorative and damaging. It pathologizes the child. It doesn't get to the root of the issue, and that has changed and improved somewhat over the years, but there's still a very long way to go with that. So punishment addresses the symptom, not the cause. So the symptom may be kids flying off the handle, or chucking things around, swearing a lot, whatever it may be, assaulting people, nocturnal behaviours, self-harming behaviours, whatever it may be, all kinds of stuff. And we tend to rush to manage the risk because we're dealing with what we think is the problem, but actually it isn't. It's the symptom. The problem is deeper. So just as we wouldn't yell at the runner with a broken leg because he couldn't do it in a decent time, I'm saying we shouldn't be yelling, punishing, prosecuting kids for behaviour when actually the behaviour isn't the problem is the development. So, okay, so just to say, if you've just joined us, welcome. My name is Johnny Matthew. I'm a criminologist and social worker, and I write at johnnymatthew.com. I'd love to send you a free ebook, by the way, about connecting with troubled young people. So if you nip over onto the website, the link's behind me, you can just give me your email, and I won't spam you or trade your email with anybody at all. But if you let me have that, I'll send you a free ebook down the pipe. And all that means is that when you sign up, I send you the blog post once a week to your inbox. That's it. So I'd love to do that for you if that would help you. Okay, so just as we wouldn't shout at our runner because he couldn't do it in a decent time, I'm saying we shouldn't really be punishing. Our first reflex shouldn't be to punish troubled, developmentally damaged young people for behaviour that they can't really control. Okay, so what's the answer? Well, I think the answer is that we need to help them to learn to control that behaviour. So there's 4 things, 5 actually, but a group of 4 to start with that I want to suggest just as really clear pointers. So on top of this idea that we need to deal with the problem rather than the symptom. So we need to help the young person through the behaviour and then address the problem. I think probably next week's blog post I'm going to talk about helping kids to return to calmness again. So that might be helpful for you to have that in your mind. I'm going to address that in a bit more detail. Okay, so the first thing is these kids need safety. They need to feel safe. Something has triggered behaviour, and that behaviour probably occurred more naturally and more often in a very dangerous and difficult situation. So what I'm saying is we need to flip that coin, and we need to help these kids to feel safe. They need to feel safe. So we've got to think about the environment. We've got to think about where they are when this behaviour is occurring. We've got to think about what may have triggered it. But above all, we've got to think, if I was feeling this distressed, if my behaviour was in this state that this young person's behaviour is in, what would I need in order to feel okay and feel safe? And that's what we need to be providing. So it may be taking them to a quieter place. It may be just sitting down and trying to help them to be quiet. It may be mirroring that emotion and mirroring those feelings and their facial expression and their words, but without the emotional push, so we attune with them and bring them back down. Whatever it may be, but they need to feel safe. That's really important. A place they can rest and relax and breathe a bit before we start to address the issue. So the first thing is safety. The second thing I think they need is patience. These kids have taken years to damage sometimes. They've been year in, year out in difficult situations where they haven't been parented properly, where things have gone badly wrong, where they may have been with other kids whose lives have been damaged too because there's a sibling group, and these kids may have been carers of sorts within that sibling group. They may have had adult figures who come and go, who they don't know, who've been dangerous. They may have had parents who've been neglectful. But it's taken years to damage this child. And yet I think one of the reasons we go wrong is we expect quick changes, and it just doesn't happen. So not only do we need to help them to feel safe, we need to be really patient. And that is hard. I mean, I find it hard. And I think we all do, and I think that's fine. It is difficult behaviour. But patience is a lovely thing. When you know quite often you've done something or said something and you know you're a bit out of order, when somebody is kind and patient to you, it really helps. It dials down the tension and the pressure. So I think kids need, there's 2 things. There's the in-situation patience, where we need to really help kids to just know that we're there, that we're not making the situation worse. We're not building on it by shouting at them and trying to control it or punish them straight away while they're still florid and dealing with it. But then there's that longer term patience that says, you know what, I'm in this with you for the long haul. I know you've just been effing and blinding at me in the supermarket, or I know you've treated me as a foster carer really badly and I don't deserve that, or I know you're a social worker and I'm your social worker and you've told me to F off again, and I've been trying to engage you for weeks and it isn't working. And it's so tempting to default to a kind of rejecting thing. Oh, well, if you can't be bothered, I can't be bothered. Or if you don't turn up, why should I make the effort? And we get into that quick punishment, quick consequences. And whilst there may be a need for consequences in the long run, we'll come there in a minute. Right now, in the moment, kids need to know that we're patient with them and that we've got time and that we understand and that we're not going to react to make ourselves feel better, that we're going to work in a way that makes them feel better. So we need to be patient in the moment, but we also need to be patient in the long run. We need to hang in there. There's no good giving kids appointments and then the first time they don't turn up, throwing in the towel. Well, they didn't show. It's a didn't attend. I'll move on to the next one. These kids need time. It's taking time to damage them. It takes time and patience to help them to put it right. So they need safety, they need patience. Third thing they need is calming. These kids haven't grown up in calm situations. They've not really learned what it is to function calmly, and they've not really been probably living with adults who know how to self-regulate very well. They've probably not been in a family situation where people help each other and are supportive. So if one person is struggling, the others rally round. They probably, as a little one, were not gathered up when they were gathered up into the parents' arms when they were distressed as a baby or a toddler, and rocked and helped to learn to self-regulate. Now, if you haven't had that, and you're 15 and you lose the plot a bit and your behaviour becomes problematic, how can we expect that person to bring themselves back to calm when they've never been taught that? They've never been modelled that, and nobody's actually gone alongside them and taught them those skills, which are really quite complex, where you've got florid behaviour and you're trying to bring thinking and cognitive processes to bear to regulate that behaviour. It's really difficult. Thank you for the hearts, guys, by the way. Really appreciate it. It's strange sitting in your front room talking to the iPad, so it's lovely to know there are people there. Thank you for that. Okay, so they need safety, they need patience, they need calming, they need us to get alongside them and to help them and to hang in there for the long run and to be a calm influence, even if we're not saying anything. And the fourth thing is, these kids just need encouragement. I think they just need encouragement by the bagload. I had an encouraging email yesterday, just a little email from somebody who read the blog post and just said, listen, thanks for this, I really appreciated it. It probably took them 15 seconds to write the email, but you know what, it made my day. And I think it's so easy for us who are maybe used to being encouraged, used to being loved, used to being valued and affirmed, to assume that everybody has that. And do you know what, these kids don't have that. They haven't been brought up by people who tell them they love them, who've drawn out their strengths, pointed them out, praised them and affirmed them. They're not used to that. And so I think one of the things we can do as workers is proactively look for things that are going right. Look for character traits or strengths or just little actions or words that are positive, and to just shine the spotlight on that and help these kids to just to feel good about themselves. Now, they may react to it because they're not used to it. They may be suspicious of it. But again, safety, patience, calmness and encouragement. If we do those things and we keep doing them, eventually they may start to believe that. So encouragement is really important. These kids have not been used to kind words. And I think sometimes just being kind and drawing out things. I was in a therapy session once with a young man, very, very, very damaged, actually quite dangerous young man in terms of his behaviour. And he pulled a hoodie over his face as we were talking. And he said, "What do you think, John, when I look at you like this? What are you thinking?" He said, does it scare you? And I said, well, you know what, mate? If I didn't know you, it might scare me a bit. And if you were in town, I might kind of give you a wide berth. I said, but you know what? I know you, and you're a really nice kid, and I love working with you. So here and now, doesn't make a blind bit of difference. You want to put your hoodie up, you put your hoodie up. And he smiled, and I smiled. And it was a little thing, and we moved on. But you know what? It was an excuse to say to him, you know what? You're a really nice kid, and I like working with you. And I think it takes it out of that professional distance thing or that dealing with the problem thing, and it focuses on a kid's strengths. And I think we underestimate the impact of that. So, 4 quick things: safety, patience, calming, encouragement. If we can do that, I think we really help these kids. I just want to say a quick word about consequences, because the question that always comes up in this kind of discussion is, well, what about consequences? I'm not saying that there is no place for consequences. There will be consequences anyway, because the kids are not with us most of the time. So there are nearly always consequences. What I'm saying is that consequences that make us feel better, there's no place for that. Consequences that move to punish quickly without helping, there's no place for that either. And consequences that are just done because this kind of behaviour equals this consequence, there's no place for that either. And I wish I had time to talk about this a bit more, and maybe we will in a future blog post. But I think what we need to be doing is helping young people to calm down first, and then revisiting that behaviour and debriefing in a calmer moment. And then maybe we do need to bring some consequences to bear. Or, more importantly, help the child to establish a routine or a set of rules that will keep them and help them to feel safe, that will demonstrate our patience for them and will set a context for real and meaningful change, rather than diving in to do something to them because of what they did to us with their behaviour. I just don't think that works. So kids need clear tracks to run on. They need a sense of what's okay and what's not okay, what's expected, not just expected from them, and not just don't do things, but things that are okay to do. We need to describe the space and the freedom that they have got, and we also need to make sure they know what they can expect of us. So they need clear tracks to run on. But the other thing is, they're going to derail. They're going to come off the rails at some point. Things will go wrong. But you know what? It's not about verbally thrashing a kid or bringing consequences to bear or expelling them or prosecuting them for what they did. It's about helping them to calm through the behaviour and then revisiting it again to say, listen, how can we do this better? And maybe there needs to be a consequence that narrows their field of freedom for a while or removes a privilege for a while or something. That's fine. There's a place for that. But you know what? Kids for whom that really works are kids who've grown up in calmness, kids who understand clear boundaries, kids who've got an ability to self-regulate, kids who can run 100 metres in 15 seconds. But these kids' legs are bust or their ankles are turned, and they can't do that. So we can't afford to apply the same principles of consequences and punishment to really troubled kids as we do to those who've had more privileged and normal kind of loving backgrounds. So there we are. Let's not be punishing troubled kids. Let's not be doing things to them that make us feel better. Let's be addressing the real cause, which is developmental problems, impairment, attachment disorder, trauma. And let's provide an environment through keeping it safe, through being patient, through coming alongside them and helping them back to calmness and attuning with them, helping them to co-regulate. And let's give them bucket loads, boatloads of encouragement so that they know we're in it with them for the long haul. So there we go. Punishment, generally speaking, with these kids doesn't work. But you know what? Kindness, safety, patience, therapy sometimes, and someone who'll hang in there, that's a whole different matter. And it does work. It really does. So there we go. Thank you for being here. I'm thrilled to bits that you've been able to join me. I hope it has been useful. I know it's really quick and rushed because it's a massive subject, and I know you're all off to work if you're not already in work, and so I wish you well. Let me point you back over to the website. You can get this video will be uploaded onto there later today, so if you missed the 24-hour window for watching the Periscope replay, you can get it on the website. I really appreciate you being here. If you want to subscribe, I'll send you the ebook, so pop over and let me have your email and we'll go for it. So I wish you well. Keep going. Hang in there with these kids. They need us. And when we see the fruits of it later on, there's nothing like it.